Welcome to the Galen Trombley Show. You can find me on Facebook at Galen Trombley, on Instagram at Galen Trombley, and on YouTube at Galen Trombley. Spelling GaelanTrombley. Enjoy the show. Welcome to the Galen Trombley Show. All right, so we are live now. This is episode 167 of the Galen Trombley Show with Deena Giltz McCullough. She is the president and CEO of Northern Insuring Agency. We also have her trusty sidekick, Zoom, here, who I think I read on this. I probably should have quality time with her schnoodle puppy, Zoom, and she is a mainstay around the office, I hear.
Absolutely. She's our chief comfort officer. We'll see how she does today, Galen.
She's doing good so far. She was very animated. I thought my assistant was going to take her home with her, but we ended up sneaking her in the office, so she's going to be safe, and she'll be leaving with mom, hopefully. So, Deena, for anybody that does not know you, kind of give us a rundown, who you are, what you do, background, all that good jazz.
Oh, geez. What's my story? So like you said, my name is Deena Giltz McCullough. I'm a third generation president CEO of Northern Insuring Agency. I've been in the president role since 2008, and I joined the organization in 1985. My grandpa was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and my dad called my newly married self in Texas and said, "How would you like to come back and joined the insurance agency?" And my husband, Mark, who was a military guy, gave up his military career and said, "Yes, I would love to live in Plattsburgh for the rest of my life."
Was he from Plattsburgh?
No, he was stationed here in the Air Force.
Okay.
Right out of Penn State, was his assignment. He went in the Air Force, and they assigned him to Plattsburgh.
So you met him while you were in Plattsburgh. So you're from Plattsburgh.
I did. I'm from Plattsburgh. I was born and raised here.
Okay.
Yep, and Mark was not. Mark was born in Japan. He's not Japanese, but he was born in Japan.
Okay.
Military family as well.
And so then you moved down to Texas, like San Antonio?
He was in Abilene, and I was in Fort Worth. So we both had jobs there. And Mark is a bioenvironmental engineer. I say that because that's not what he does currently. He's retired. He's a farmer, has a vineyard that he's growing cold hardy red grapes. In fact, he would be a much more interesting person to talk to.
Colin actually mentioned that.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where we get the wine from.
I know, exactly. I think he would be much more interesting in many ways. And the insurance tends to be a little dry. I keep trying to make it sexy, but it's insurance.
So I get okay. So let's talk about insurance. So I had your son Colin on, and I get along great with Colin, and we had some good talks and laughs and stuff. And he was obviously explaining that he's the fourth generation now of the company.
That's correct.
So third generation. He gave me the background. Started on Sable. Your great-grandfather.
No, my grandfather.
Or sorry, your grandfather.
His great-grandfather.
Correct. And then your father, who is
Rod, yeah.
Rod, okay, Rod. So then Rod, then you, and then Colin. So you came on in the 80s. So how was that coming on in the 80s versus where you're at now, and like the size and scope and everything over the last 30-something years?
Yeah, it's been 36 years, Galen, and obviously lots changed in 36 years. I would say at top of the list is the women in 1985 when I joined there was nobody else in sales that was a woman. So that's kind of, like you've seen that trajectory in a lot of businesses where women have become much more prominent. And I was not very good at the first jobs they gave me to do. I started in the mailroom, and I answered phones at the front desk for a while, and then they put me in a service. Anyway, I was really not good at these things, and they said, well, let's just give her a sales job. So that is where I found much more of what was interesting for me. And it's interesting, this past week I was just talking with the son of a guy that mentored me quite a bit in those early days, and it was before we had a mentoring program. His name was William Smith, and his son Mark just reached out to me about some things that were on his mind, and Bill passed away, unfortunately, now several years ago, but Bill was great, and he really, really took me under his wing and gave me great guidance, and that's what I needed to get started.
And Bill was part of the company at the time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so when you started out, in sales, did you find that, were you drawn to insurance? Like, what was because obviously your dad reached out to you to come back.
It was really just that, Galen. I don't think I ever had any expectation. I went to college, graduated with a degree in sociology and fine arts from St. Lawrence University. And I don't think those were the days of, maybe some people did, but I wasn't really thinking more broadly about what my future would be. It wasn't as much pressure then to get it all figured out and know what you were going to do, and go to career services and everything. So I don't know. When I went to Texas, I worked for even a temporary staffing company.
Okay.
And then I was working for a life insurance company. I don't know. I think I just felt like everything would work out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it was really just dad asked, and I love my dad with all my heart. And I said, yes, Dad, for you, and love my grandpa too.
We heard
Zoom's piping in here.
That's fine. We'll have to get him on the mic.
Yeah.
So roughly what age were you when you came back?
I was 23.
Oh yeah, okay, so very young. And
Yeah.
I think nowadays, I actually had this conversation with the guy that's been shadowing. He's kind of trying to get in real estate, and he said that he goes, I wish at 20 I knew more of what I knew at 30, because we were both about 30, and like I said, 23, you're kind of just testing the waters in so many
Absolutely.
things. So when you came back, you started out with the sales. Now, again, back. You were the only female in the sales department?
I was, yes, I was it. No, I was the first and the only for a period of time. So when you say what's really different, certainly, there's Zoom with her bones making a little background noise here. We'll see how that goes, Galen. But that was really I would say the men mostly were nice to me, but not always. I mean, there was chauvinism is a strong thing that happens still, I think, to this day in the world and in business and in, the insurance business. But for the most part, they were really great. And it's not for prime time, but there was an early story that happened where I asked Mark for his advice how I would level the playing field with this group of guys that would always, if a bad word was said, they'd say to me, oh, excuse me. And they changed the topic of conversation. And finally, I just used a comeback for them that, like I say, I wouldn't really be appropriate to say because it would be like saying a bad word. But that's what I ended up doing. And their jaws just kind of dropped and they said, okay, that's clear.
She can hang.
Yeah. Because I didn't really want to be in a different category.
So now when did you start to have, or how long were you in sales, I guess, and where did you go after sales?
So for sales, I'm still in sales. I still have a really nice group of clients that I work with. I would say larger clients, long relationships, people that I've worked, I would say closely with for, some of them for decades. So I'm still doing that part of my job. In our business, and maybe like what you do in real estate here, that to be really close to what the business is, you need to be in the business.
Yeah.
And so I just have added other duties, HR duties, strategic planning, vision thinking. I mean, that's probably most of a lot of what I do is really like guiding the company towards new directions, what needs to happen, but really giving the younger folks the opportunity to spread their wings and make it their own.
So at what point did you start having more of like a leadership position?
So I would say, kind of move fast for me. I'm a good person to drop in and see what holes need to be filled. And in 1992, I'd had my third baby. So, you talk about yours 3 under 4. So it's 1992. I'm now 30 years old. Oh, she's just getting comfy over here.
She's snuggling right out.
And I was home breastfeeding a baby when my dad showed up with the sales and marketing manager, a guy by the name of Butch Getty, and said, we're thinking about splitting these two positions apart. Would you become sales manager? So I became sales manager on maternity leave.
And you were about 30 at the time?
I was 30.
And so that was your first time where you were overseeing leadership and
right.
having some responsibility of organization.
And all men. And I can tell you one of our branch offices, and that would probably be the second thing I would tell you, that we used to have a lot of branch offices in smaller communities because, you weren't as connected with the internet. My dad showed up one day and the gentleman said to him, well, I'm having a problem working with Deena. He said, well, what's the problem? He said, well, she's female. And my dad, he told me that. And I said, well, I don't know how I'm going to change that. I realize there are ways to change it, but it was not in my, so anyway, some people have worked out, some people have not. But my dad was always really my greatest cheerleader, basically saying, look, this is who's running the show here. And if your issue is merely a gender issue, that's not an issue.
Do you find, has that become a little easier now?
Oh,
Today's day and age?
Oh, yeah.
Because I think
we're mostly females on the sales team now.
Yeah.
It's completely a 180 the other way where, we've gone from 80%, from the male standpoint even to, what did I do the numbers the other day? We're only 20% men on the whhole team. We have 38 people. We've got 7-8 men.
Yeah. Okay. So because like where we work too, from a male perspective, we're probably about the same numbers. And like office every day, there's four, basically I count myself a little bit on like the staff aspect of it, but there's 3 females and I'm the only male. So like, this is always kind of the joke that I'm just like the only guy here majority of the time. But I find I've always looked at, I mean, I grew up with 2 sisters, mom, and have worked with females my whole life that, he's fine. Females my whole life that it doesn't really, it's never really changed. Like I've always worked a lot with females throughout my life and just through different things that it doesn't seem any different if you're taking, leadership from a female or having them as a peer or something like that. So, and I think maybe it's just generational. We just grew up more with it.
Yeah, I think it is very generational. In fact, we love men. There's no reason why, like we really like the balance. The gender balance is good for, I think, every organization. We've got a lot of great, capable women. But I think where I go with this is that even now the generation probably doesn't see that women were ever treated lesser than. And for many of us that grew up in the 80s, definitely in a time when it was women were expected to do it all, and we took that on ourselves. So I can't really, blame that so much on.
And this is with like work and motherhood. Well, work
and motherhood and community. So I said yes. Like I said, I said yes to like everything that was asked of me. I said yes to it, and I was running around with the kids, taking them to every doctor's appointment and going to every game they were in and showing up for when they were sick at school. And, and it goes on. And that was something that has changed, I think, a lot for, your gen. You have true partners if you're fortunate enough to have a partner, or if you don't want one, I guess, politically correct, whatever works for you. But I'm a fan of true partners. And I would say that in more Mark's in my recent years, he does all the cooking and the shopping now and everything. I just became bad at it and he got better and,
Well, I think that's one of the things like day to day. I have a lot on my plate here and running a lot of stuff. So my wife stays home with the kids and she does massage on the side and she's still like, so she's got like her job, which is, a decent schedule. I wouldn't say she's full-time, but she's definitely more than part-time. She has people every day and then she has, kids and one of our kids is in school but she still runs like our house. So like I kind of call her the CEO of our house because I do a lot around the house and I try to pick up slack here and there, but she's around all the time. Like even today we had some just minor household stuff that pops up and she's making the calls and she's coordinating and people are coming over and she's doing all that. And the benefit is it allows me to frees me up to do all the stuff here and kind of like split the two. And then I can really go home and try to be home and not have to feel like I have to do a million things. So, but I think the hard part, I'm actually curious on a couple fronts for you. It's because I find that I'm getting more into leadership roles, and that's something that I've had to learn. Like real estate to me is, I kind of say it's like autopilot because I've been doing it for 11 years now. So like the actual selling and buying of homes is just what I've always done at sales. But then I start looking at, okay, now leadership. Now we have, since I've kind of started taking over operation, we've in theory tripled. Well, we went from 1 staff to 3 staff, and now we're agent-wise, we've I think doubled or tripled the amount of agents in about 2.5 years. Now with that becomes a lot of just moving parts and a lot of people, and and I'm trying to focus on growth. And when you talked about balancing it all with family and balancing it all with work and balancing it all with just the odds and ends of day to day, and then also what to focus on, what to say no to, that's the kind of stuff that, like, how did you evolve into trying to keep everything together and do everything, and then also making sure your priorities were taken care of? How did that go?
It took a while.
Yeah.
I applaud you for thinking that through earlier. I said it earlier. I said yes to everything. I became president of the United Way board when I was also pregnant and in a new role. And same ask. So, I would say that it has been learned over time. Very smart HR manager that retired now from Northern Insuring 11 years ago. Her name was Virginia Smith. And I remember the day that she said to me, you have a little bit of an issue with boundaries. There's a really good book by Henry Cloud. And I actually just gave that book away as part of the Women in Business. We had some books that each one of us that was on a panel, we're talking about meetings. And I recommend it for people to read because if you don't honor your own.
What's it called again?
It's called Boundaries. By Dr. Henry Cloud, and good news is it's still available. And actually, I think it's been updated in the last 5 years. I whatever it is that suits you. I think people should set boundaries with people. They should know what our boundaries are. We don't need to say yes to everything. So I then became a little pickier about things that I was willing to say yes to. And I'll tell you right now, I'm saying no to anything new. I said yes to you because it's a one and done. But anything that requires longer meetings, big commitment, committees, or anything, and it's not that I don't love the organization or love the people. I think they're terrific. It's just I'd rather grow my younger team and have them be part of it. And I'm at a point now where I'm on the University of Vermont Health Network Board. Also, I chair their planning committee. And starting in the new year, I'll be on a different committee in addition to that. And I put a lot of energy into healthcare regionally and what needs to happen there. And I'm a trustee at a bank, and I'm still like,
I was reading the stuff you're doing.
Yeah.
Like, it kind of made my head spin. So
yeah, and that's, I guess what I would say is I'm still through COVID. Some of the things aren't happening as much. And I've just taken a good, healthy step back and said, maybe it's time for some other people to be doing that.
Yeah. It's like slowing down to get ahead a little bit, like taking some stuff off your plate and allowing you to kind of focus other directions.
Maybe a little more on not doing all those things. I got a dog here I'm thinking about, and she's training. She just passed her canine good citizen test a couple months ago, and she's training to be Love on a Leash therapy dog.
Okay.
And she's good at it. In fact, we were up at Plattsburgh State for about an hour today. They asked the group to bring their pets up, and I went with another dog, and I still have a supervisor with me. But the kids some of them planned it they would come down because the dogs were there. And that kind of therapy is priceless.
So when you talk about, because I know you're, like your company and your family, and it has done a lot with giving back and a lot of, and I look at, again, I have a lot of respect for you guys and for your company, and just seeing kind of like it's a small business, but then has expanded, and like then I strip it off. I always strip it back to if somebody else has done it, you can do it kind of deal. So I always look at, like, there's certain companies that, especially because you're local and if somebody can do it locally, then you can do it. So I look at you guys as a very good, I guess, goal of what an office or a company could get to, and then kind of knowing the people that have been through there and knowing, your reputation. But I also like trying to give back the best I can. Obviously, I'm in a different stage of life where, things are chaotic, but we try to do certain things. We did I run this golf tournament every year, which is out, which is, picking up quite a bit of steam, which I'm excited about. But we have, different things. But I look at what you guys have done with giving back and charity, and reading a lot of this like mentorship, and is that something you've always been good at? Is that or always put precedence on?
I think so.
Did you get it from your father?
Oh yeah, it's all in our blood and our DNA. In fact, we have a corporate citizen kind of I would say a description as part of our values, that it's the time, talent, treasure kind of, you give back of your time, you give back in your finances, that you can fund people through donations or advice that you can give to others. My grandpa was really like wonderful person for doing all that. I can remember as a kid, one night he got called even to give blood at the hospital. They were short on something, and he left my grandparents' house in the middle of dinner or whenever was happening to my grandmother, going, "Where are you going, Glenn?" It's like, they would call, he would just go. So I would say I grew up with that, and I've always had that in me. It's pretty natural. And it's not just me, it's not just the family, it's really the whole organization. We did a survey now a few years ago, but just to say, what else are people doing? And a lot of people are doing different types of things. So it doesn't have to be just what I believe. It's find something that you care about. And I'm just thinking, one gal worked for us for now longer than I have. She's our longest working person other than my dad at the organization. And she's involved in her church in Willsboro. And we were just meeting with John Bernardi at the United Way to do some additional training, and made a good connection that here's another resource that people can give to find a way if they need something beyond what a JCEO or United Way or whatever else can do. That's another. So I just say, like, a lot of people, it's not just me, and it's not just my dad, and it's not just Colin, our son, and my brother Randy Giltz is involved too. Ed Davis, who's the senior vice president for us, is really involved in a lot of things, as is Tammy Bell Martin. It just kind of goes on and on.
Well, I know. Like, I'd say maybe the younger group coming through, like I know, like Bryce played in that tournament with us.
Yeah,
and then,
I was going to say, like, you want?
He was good. He was the best. He was on my team, so
he's an awesome golfer too.
Yeah.
So there's a balance. But I would say Bryce is involved in things. So is Tiffany Garcia. Is
I know Tiff very well.
Super involved in so many things, and it just like I want to just say, because I'm going to miss somebody's name in this, but really, I would say 80% of the people in the organization have things that they're involved in. People are on school boards. That's our IT guys on the Chazy school board.
Yeah, Jason.
Yep. And so, see, I'm telling you names.
He's with my dad on the board. He's
yeah.
been around
So,
for a while,
you get where I'm going
Yeah.
with this. And we've had people that Alzheimer's walks that are important to them. We just did a garage sale this summer where employees donated all their favorite non-needed items, and it went to the Third Age Adult Daycare Center for one of our employees' mom got early Alzheimer's, and so we raised some $800. It's just like those are good things to do, and it empties out people's clutter that they don't need, and
it's a win-win.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, the giving back aspect, I always look, and I had a friend of mine. He told me, he goes, you pretty much you earn, you save, and you give. Like as a business, like you kind of, if you put it in real general terms, is that you spend time accumulating, whether it be wealth or finances or whatever. But then at the end of the day, it's like you can only do so much because it's better going to someone. I think more. I get more out of giving to someone than I do from getting, and I think I think you're most likely the same way. It's like you kind of have what you want, and if you can afford what you want, or there's things that you can do that you want. And I think for some people, if they're not in a position, I said being able to kind of lend a hand or help out feels better than anything I could ever give.
Yeah,
or receive. I mean,
and making sure that I answer, like when you ask me, has this always been part? And how do you decide? How do you know? Well, again, let me just reiterate. It has to be something authentic to the individual, something they care about. Like you don't join an organization because it looks good on your resume. I realize in high school sometimes that happens, but it usually never works out. Because if it isn't your thing, then, so...
You gotta have a passion for it.
You're a golfer. You got to have a real, and we tell that to people. What is your passion? Find your passion and do that. And then I'm still back to boundaries because I happen to, unfortunately or fortunately, have a lot of passions and lots of things that interest me. And I genuinely curious person. And I love people and I love helping out. That's not really good though. And at some point, I did get to a point where I said, what are the parameters of an organization that really fit with what I have time to give? And one of the things that was a hard rule for me is it had to have a paid staff. And I know that seems maybe hard to say, but we have a lot of not-for-profits here that don't have paid staff. And if you are their board president, you are their non-paid staff. And I don't know, if that resonates with you or not. And if you have time to do that, I think that's great. But I already had a career and I had my family. And
meaning the organizations you were on were paid.
They were not. They didn't. Some of them did not have an executive director, and it just became too much for me personally. So that was like a hard rule that It wasn't that they were bad organizations. It just didn't fit
with the boundary you said.
Just didn't fit with what I had time to donate.
Yeah, and that's as I talk about transitioning more into leadership and running the company, because I don't know if we really have titles, but I guess you could say CEO would be my title too, even though we're in a small organization. It's, but I look at that with the idea of like wanting to grow, but then are you familiar with 80-20 rule, Pareto's principle?
Say it again slower.
The 80-20 rule.
Okay, keep going.
Pareto, it's called Pareto's principle.
No, I don't know that.
So basically it's stating that like 80% of your, 80% of what you receive or get is from 20% of your output.
Yeah.
So if you focus on 20% of your day, it really brings in probably the majority
I
of the
haven't heard
results.
it called that, but I'm familiar with what you're saying. Yeah.
So it's basically trying to say no to the 80% stuff, and what is my 20% that really moves the needle forward? And I'm in that weird position where I still am doing a lot of sales, but I'm trying to find that quiet downtime to think and do projects. And so my guess for my thought for you is being the visionary, being like big picture, where is this going? How often do you get a chance to just like sit down and it's just Deena? It's not, I'm not answering to people. I'm not responding to messages. I'm not answering emails. I'm just sitting quietly in my own mind, thinking, planning, strategizing. Like, how often do you get to do that? How long do you get to do that? Do you have a special place that you do that?
Yeah, well, I'm a little sad that it's gotten cold out because I swim, like seriously swim in the summer.
Okay.
And I just...
Lake water?
Yeah, I just stopped on the 13th because, we needed to pull our dock. But it always puts me into a little bit of a sad place. So when I swim, a lot of that's very meditative. So I'll swim for 20, 30 minutes every morning. When the weather's good. The waves don't even bother me, but it has to be 62 degrees and above for me to be like, okay with the lake. So I'm a real swimmer. Now I've just started biking. So a lot of times I'm not a good, I've tried meditation, just sitting. It doesn't really do well by me, but I think meditation takes on lots of forms. So walking meditation, I'm a big gardener, and I spend time now, I'm like on the bike. So whether I can put it with exercise or even playing with the dog, that for me is I consider that quiet time. So, even though you're saying, when do I just sit down quietly? I do like a cup of coffee in the morning. I'm a very early riser. I love the quiet, love to read the newspaper, the local papers, whatever we have, and I read a national paper too. So a lot of times that's just thinking time for me, Galen.
Now, when you're doing that, when you come up with ideas, and are you, like for myself, I like quiet, not being interrupted for a few hours. And I know it's tough, like for me, because I get into like a deeper headspace.
And you've got kids.
That's why it's a very hard hack to get, like right now. But I try, but for me, it's just to take all my thoughts that have, like I take a lot of notes. I email myself notes all the time because things are going through my head. I'm like, good idea. But I actually have a Word doc on my computer called Whiteboard, which used to be up here.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah.
And instead of having all my stuff written up, I put it on my document called Whiteboard, which is just a long list of my thoughts and things. Right. And then I would say once or twice a year, it's probably 20 something pages now, but I'll just go through all the lines and be like, okay, I'm going to grab that one. I'm going to grab that one. And then I pick what I want to work on. I know it's not all going to be done.
No, but I think that's again, everybody has their own style of how they do things. I'm a list maker. I tend to come up with pretty concrete directionality of what I'm doing, and then I develop it out. And I can usually, like I say, if I'm swimming, and then I maybe come out of that with, here's 2-3 things I need to do. Or in the morning, I'll just here's a couple touch points. I do a lot of reading, and I'll usually have a personal book that I like to read along with a business related book. And I also attend different conferences. I've even done reading vacations where I just take a stack of books and go and read half a dozen books while I'm away. And then that helps me maybe generate some thoughts. But I don't know, like I admire you. If you can do that with kids around, good for you. We've got a pretty busy house. Yeah. My parents live a half a mile from us. Colin and Lauren are here in town. We've got the dogs. I mean, it just feels like we're kind of a high traffic, which I love. Yeah. But I'm an introvert. People don't really understand that about me. I'm not the extrovert.
I think I'm like you. I'm an introverted extrovert.
Yeah, exactly. I think you and Colin talked about this too, although I think he's more of an extrovert. Because but you all talked about, going to after hours and some of those things where you're and I would say for me though, I like to drive quietly alone. I have about a 15-minute commute every day that I'm in. So I don't know, maybe that doesn't answer your question, but it sounds like we're getting to the same result, but having a different approach to it. Yeah. And maybe I've been doing it long enough now, but usually I set on working on a strategic plan, specific item right now. And so I kind of like bookmark that, and then I build it out, and then I try it on, meaning, you know what I mean? Like try it on. I kind of like, I mull it, and in background, it's like my head spins through how will that play out? How will that play out? So I'm having these maybe other things going on, but my head at the same time is figuring out how all these other things can play together. So I feel like I've been gifted with an ability to think very quickly and process quickly. And I'm very linear in and it's not like I'm unmovable. It's just that I can see A to B. And I can usually process, okay, somebody go over here and touch base here and do that. And you got to take care of this before this goes anywhere. Here's some things that you got to do so that we're making sure we got the team all rowing in the right direction as it goes.
Are you very decisive?
Very.
Okay.
I would say, but I'm not unmovable. I'm decisive with data. If the data points one way, absolutely. But we have a lot of room for people to convince otherwise if they have different information or... sometimes gut sense is the way that you got to go on things. Maybe there's no data. Usually I don't flounder around too long. I'm a pretty clear thinker.
So people know where you stand.
They absolutely know. If they don't know, they haven't been paying attention.
So okay, so there's a couple things I want to build off of that, and I'll come back to, but I want to still stay with the morning. There's two words I'm going to write, and we'll dive into those after. But so morning time, what time do you wake up?
Around 5, sometimes 4:30.
And
naturally, I'm just awake.
And do you go to bed pretty early?
What's early?
Like I would say before 10.
Sometimes.
Okay, so you're not like I have to be to bed by 9. I'm up by 4. It's kind of like you go to bed when you feel tired.
I don't set an alarm. Yeah, I have a wind down routine. Yeah.
And at what point in the morning do you start how much are you like to Deena time before you have to start answering to other people or in the
See,
mode?
I don't mind that though. I'll get on email 6:00, and I have to. It's ridiculous, but I have to scan through my spam folder too to make sure there's anything that's stuck there. I'm taking a look at what's come in overnight. Take a look at my schedule. Anything else that has to go in there. Yeah, I will answer emails super early. Okay. So then what happens is, so it's quiet. Read all the newspapers. Then I'll answer emails for a while. Feed the dog. Mark and I have a routine. We love to sit in the hot tub for 20 minutes. I'll swim, or I'll do bike, or I'll do something else. Breakfast, which means I'm back to, is anything else popped up? What else needs to happen? And then, we have a little bit of a short conversation, and then it's like out the door.
And you're out the door at what time? Heading to work?
Lately it's been a little later, I would say, maybe 8:30, quarter to 9. I used to be much earlier than that, but because I can do so much from home, and I've got a home computer set up, that if I can't do something from my phone or my iPad, I log in. And that way I can do things that way too. And I'll field phone calls that time of day or what, I mean, that's okay with me though.
Are you good at shutting everything off and just having time for yourself?
I am.
Okay.
So at a certain time at night, everything's off. Mm-hmm. But I still keep a landline. So all your listeners that are listening here, if you want to look up my landline, you can still call me. And I do that.
The white pages?
Well, I do that. Yeah, right. I do that
intentionally
though, because if, we say people can text us, but I don't sleep with my phone next to my side of bed. I don't even have my noises on. It won't beep. It won't do whatever. It will vibrate for ring. So if you want me, you can call the office. You can call our landline. You can call somebody else and say, find her. I'm a good responder, but I'm not.
It's not glued to your hip.
No. And I would tell you by the time dinner rolls around, I'll shut it off or put it down. And then I might check it one more time before maybe 7, 8 o'clock at night. And that's usually just see if there's any texts. I think it's fair to say, and this is a really good point in business, that people need downtime. Mm-hmm. And we tell our staff that too. And if I'm the boss and I'm emailing people at silly hours, then what are they supposed to do?
Yeah.
And I don't believe that. That's just it's not our culture. We encourage people when you're on vacation, you need to be on vacation. Now, for some people, coming back to a million emails doesn't work. For other people, we can turn their email off for them and they can just have a break. And usually by the time they get back, most everything's taken care of anyway, or somebody will reach out to them.
Yeah.
So I try and do that at least once a year but most of our people, even if they're on vacation and they're still checking, they're winding down, they have their away message up. And they're not answering as many things. Yeah,
I think it's important because we're so connected nowadays.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the hard parts is people have access to your phone. And like I kind of joke it, but not really with people. I'm like, I get texts 365 days a year about stuff, even Christmas. Like I'll get some random text middle of the Christmas day being like, hey, by the way, that listing came up. Can we go look at it this week? And it's like,
sure.
And I won't respond to them, but I don't leave someone I have to text them at some point during the day.
I think you're in a tougher business in some ways because you're working with people that are usually on the off hour when they can do things. So weekends, evenings, Christmas, as you say.
Yeah.
While our business, it's more predictable in that sense. So as we have to set I'm back to that boundaries, guidelines, expectations, culture. I hope I'm not emailing or texting my staff on Christmas unless it's a true emergency. That, like I say, that just wouldn't happen. Yeah. But there are things that come up. If we have a client that's having a serious issue, I don't care what time of day, night it is, my people know how to reach me. Mm-hmm. They'll get me and we'll respond to what's needed.
Because insurance, sometimes it could be slow, and then all of a sudden, bam, all hands on deck.
That's really how it is. And, obviously tragic fires happen and people die. Weird stuff happens that people don't even know if they have a problem with it. And we had some focus group meetings in our office at one point here, and we asked businesses locally why they like doing business with us. And I still remember one of the people said, because you don't laugh when we call you at our ridiculous things that we're calling you about. And it would never have occurred to me to laugh at someone. But if you are a client and you just don't even know the answer to something, I mean, so many people think it's just, they think it's a bother, but that's what we do. I mean, call us with your ridiculous questions.
Your silly questions.
We will not laugh at you.
Yeah.
We promise, unless you're laughing and you would invite us to laugh with you, and then we will all be laughing. But I think people are embarrassed. They've gotten in a car accident or they've gotten a DWI and they know what impact that's going to have on their driving, their history, their job, their whatever. And those are not funny, they're not funny things. It's kind of first to say, "Are you okay?" And then, "What do you need from us?"
So how you said it before, but like, how do you make insurance sexy? Is it just like,
Yeah. So here's the thing is that I'm always joking about it, Galen. I mean, I think you can make anything fun. I say
Yeah.
sexy, but I get that we read contracts all day long. That's what we do. It's kind of hard to make that really exciting. However, the purpose of what we do is, like we say, we don't sell insurance. We're really giving people the ability to live their lives the way that they want to live their lives, right? Mm-hmm. So we're part of their planning process. We're part of their business planning. They're part of their employee group planning. We're part of their personal lines, their home, their auto, their toys, their everything else that they have. So it's got to be the bigger why. I don't know if you've ever, listened to the Simon Sinek.
It's on my shelf.
Is it on the back behind me?
Yep.
And the dog is completely gone to sleep here on my lap. She's doing great here. So, but like, what's your why? And it's really got to be a matter of, it's got to be something bigger than yourself, and what's your obligation to other people, and what's the good that you're doing to make a difference for people. Because if you don't have good insurance, I hate to tell you, and it doesn't pay when it should, or you don't know that you made a decision that you didn't want something, because that's the other thing, is educating people so that they are making good decisions, puts people out of business. Or they might not be able to rebuild or live their lives like they were before.
Yeah, and the insurance, like, I kind of take, like, real estate. I think a lot of people get drawn to real estate because it is that sexy industry of photos and videos.
Way
and
more
visual.
sexy, Gail.
Yeah, and it's visual, and which I like, in the sense that it makes it easier sometimes because people have more interest in it. There's really no TV shows on insurance, but there's TV shows on realtors, but I look at kind of the insurance portion of it. It's like everybody has or should have insurance on certain things, and you don't care about it until you need it, and then it's what you gripe about. But then when it comes in, you're like, yes,
some people do care, and I would say to people, when you think about your most trusted advisors, your realtor comes and goes, right?
Yeah.
So they are your trusted advisor really in that moment, and you should pick a good one. I'm a fan of that. But your everyday people, you need a really good accountant for tax, audit, whatever you're doing, an attorney. I realize a lot of people don't mean attorneys, but you really want to have one before you, you need one. Insurance is in that category too. And I'm talking about the things from a business that you
finance
finance and having people on your team. And I would tell you, most of the times, even with my clients, I'm getting asked questions that aren't even insurance related. They're very much related to either the strategic direction of their organization, or it could be, I need a contractor for such and such. Do you know anybody? I mean, we get asked, where are the dry cleaners in Plattsburgh these days? I'm like, I don't know. Or who do you take your dog to for grooming? So a lot of these things come up that are, they could be serious and they could be confidential. They could be a business that's, going to be bought or sold, or they're going to buy something else, and there's absolutely no way that we should be talking about it. And I consider those relationships, they're just, completely private, and they're not something that we're sharing with other people. So having good advisors that you trust, that are already on your team before you need them, absolutely.
Well, that's kind of what you piggyback off of that. When you talk like real estate, I hate the term salesperson. So like, if you get in real estate, you're a licensed real estate salesperson. But I always looked at it and said, the salespeople just give me that, like, used car salesman vibe, and I'm like, I hate that. Like, my thing is the same thing as advisor. It's like I've spent many years learning something. I've spent years diving in. I've seen years of trends of the industry, and I use that because I know anybody walking through the door, 99.9% of people would not know more than what I know in my field. I mean, they know a lot more, 99.9% of everything else, but like, you spend so much time dealing with one industry, you get good at it. So then I look at that as not like a salesperson, but like, hey, I know I can really help you. You like, what's your goal? A, B. Like you said, straight line. Here's your goal. Let me try to help you. Let me try to foresee all the stuff that could come up, and try to alleviate any problems and do the best we can to mitigate any risk. And that is something that I've always just kept with me. And then you start talking with your why, which I remember starting out and got into real estate. And I said this with Colin. Like, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I got in. It was had more freedom of my schedule than working at a 9 to 5 or 1 to 9 at the time. And it wasn't until I had that breakthrough when I was probably like 25 years old, where I was like, you know what, I can really make a difference in a person's life, based on my information. It had nothing to do with getting a commission check. It had nothing to do with getting my name as a sale. And that was the moment where I was like, all right. And then probably 2 to 3 years later, my why changed again, because now I was like, okay, can I build out the company? Now can I affect more people? So that's been like the new why over the last couple of years. And I have long-term visions of like 50 years down the road. And the thing I admire about you and kind of the whole company that you guys are dealing with is a lot of them follow a similar path to what you guys have already done. So, I mean, you take like the years and decades that you guys have put into this, then I'm kind of looking at it like, hey, that's a pathway that I like, but I know it's doable. I know people locally have done it, and I know it's possible I could do it or someone else could do it. And so how is your why? Has your why always stayed the same? Has it evolved? Has it shifted? Because you've been in different positions.
Well, I would tell you that has been a more recent thought, that when I think about what's changed in the world is just that kind of perception from companies that are doing great things, is it's got to be about something bigger. And so that, I don't think my why was always there. I don't know that we really talked about it, although I certainly knew what a difference I was making in people's lives. When you're showing up and you, I'm thinking I try to say it without giving the client away, but it was a major $1 million plus claim. And I went the day that the event happened and sat at the table with the insurance company representatives. I want to say it was within 24 hours. And they cut him a check for advance payment on it. And I looked at the person who was my contact and I said, I know this is terrible right now, but it will be better. And it's not, insurance isn't going to make it all better, but it's going to make a lot of things better. And they had full coverage on what they needed, and were able to put themselves back together fairly quickly. And that's when, when you think what's our why, that's the moments where you go, and that life experience takes you to the point where you go, oh, this is why.
Yeah.
This is the moment where we've really made a difference for this individual. I would tell you on the other side, what we do for employees, we're a 38 employee organization. So that's a lot of families across from Glens Falls to Potsdam. So we're in 5 counties, 3 with offices, but really covering the 5-county region. And we know what it does for families that have stable work and a good work environment, and they can count on that getting paid. When you think about some businesses, it's tight sometimes to issue paychecks, or you don't know whether you're going to be able to keep that job or not keep that job, with reasons outside of the owner's control sometimes. So that, I think about like the why of what that does for people too. And we're taking our team on a fall outing this weekend. We missed last year because of, I call it stupid COVID, but anyway, we missed it because of stupid COVID. But every year we do a fall outing. It used to be a Christmas outing. That was the tradition that was started years and years ago. And then we switched it to fall because it was a less busy season than Christmas. And we're treating the staff to an overnight, a dinner, dancing, at a hotel that we've booked in a place with a beautiful facility. So we go to different places, so it isn't always one place. But
so how is like company culture? Like how big is that for you? Because I'm assuming most company cultures stem from the top.
So they come both ways, but I would believe yes that if an owner says they're not influencing culture, I would say the same thing. You're not paying attention. Because culture exists whether you direct influence or pay attention to it or not. Every organization has a culture. Yours is probably the fun culture. Right? Y'all have a lot of fun here.
I try to, yes.
Yeah. So you see, like you're a fun place to work. Like it's a serious job, but you don't take it all so seriously.
Yeah, I joke all the time. Yeah.
Right. So we do that too. That's part of what we believe in. We just worked to refine our guiding principles and values and broke them apart and came down to 3 values that we felt were the most important for us to have everybody know. And we had too many before. Not that that's bad, but too many is too many. You can't remember too many. Integrity is the first one. The second one's community. And the third one's respect. And with candor, I can tell you that integrity is what this business was built on. We are honest to fault. We follow through on our commitments. We do not cheat, lie, steal, or do anything else. Absolutely no tolerance, 0 level. Our companies, their vendors that we deal with can count on that. Our employees can count on that. Our clients can count on that. Does that mean that inadvertent mistakes do get made? Sure. We're human, but they're not intentional. And if I ever have somebody that does not follow that as a staff member, that is a deal breaker for me. Absolutely no go. Community, we talked about earlier at length. I don't need to expand more. Mm-hmm. There's an expectation that is rooted in our culture. And the third one of respect is worth talking about, because I would tell you that we have a lot of mutual respect for each other and trust as a team. And that's critical to an organization. Really, teams that trust each other function better as a whole. this last year and a half has challenged us and everyone in ways that I think were unimaginable before. Who knew that we were going to be in people's health? And not like we just said, you had a cough, go home. I mean, are you vaccinated? Are you unvaccinated? Should you be vaccinated? Should you not? What does New York say? What does CDC say? What are all these things? So we're way in more into people's stuff than ever I thought was fun. It's been very unfun year and a half on many levels. Yeah. And yet, if you look at how we need to be with each other, respect has to be at the core of that. We don't have to believe all the same things. In fact, we shouldn't. Everybody's different. And yet, what is that level that we respect each other and we respect their difference of opinion and we can have civil discourse with people? So we came back to that and did some additional training around that just to re-anchor what that means and what respect means. And I think that's good. Sometimes the world pushes us in directions that we go, yikes. And we got to kind of step back and say, all right, team. But if you have a good foundation, so culture, I mean, I absolutely know that I've influenced culture, so has my family, but so is the terrific group of people that we have. Mm-hmm. And I tell my mentees, and this is college mentees, high school mentees, that when you're starting at an organization and a company, it's really important to ask and know what the culture of that organization is before you get there. Because if it doesn't match with what your values are and what you believe in, you will not walk in on day one or week one or year two and suddenly have it be your culture. It will not shift. And that's kind of like a good question point for what should people ask when they're looking to join an organization. One of the things we're fleshing out when we hire new people, like, what do you believe in? Yeah. And do we align? Because it's a lot to train people. It's a lot to get licensed in real estate, mm-hmm. right? And get really good at it. You don't dabble in these things. I mean, I guess some people maybe do dabble, but it really is not wise.
Want to be excel at it.
Yeah, if you want to achieve mastery in something, mm-hmm. you kind of have to know what you believe in and have that figured out and have it align. You understand what I'm saying, though? Yeah. When you talk about values, those are hardcore deal breaker type things. That's not every little thing. Like, I'm a morning person, you're a night person. That is not a value. That's a behavior. There's lots of room on behaviors for different people to thrive in different environments. And we've even put together for our employees our promise to them and our promise to our clients. And that came out of the guiding principles and values. So like our commitment to education, and we pay for education for our people. It's exceedingly important to us. People need to be well educated. Our employees need to know what they're talking about, and most of them have a designation. They all that are talking to clients have licenses. And then when you look at that and say, and then what does that mean to a client? They're making good choices. Mm-hmm. And that's part of what we expect and what our clients can expect.
Yeah, it's the advisor role. Like
Absolutely.
Making sure they're good at that. Now, what about, and again, kind of jumping back into leadership, setting expectations and keeping people accountable? Is that something that you're good at? Is that
Absolutely.
Something? So this is something that, like I think this is for a lot of people, but you analyze yourself quite a bit. Like I analyze myself all day long, but not analyze myself as like, you're terrible, you're bad. It's not like negative mm-hmm. self-talk, but it's more of like, okay, recognize you're not good at this and let's try to figure out a way to get better at it. Mm-hmm. And that was one of the things I was getting into leadership was I was really good about setting expectation to keep myself accountable, but then it was pushing it on other people. And my mindset's always, well, I don't want to be like, I want to say it, but I don't want to be like overbearing, or I don't want to seem like I'm being demanding or like totalitarian and saying this has to be done. But I was always understanding of like, I'm going to tell you what I wanted you to do, and then I'm just going to trust that you do it, mm-hmm. which I know doesn't always happen. That some people do need that. You have to kind of ride them a little bit and say, hey, listen, is it done? Is it done? Are you doing it? With, kind of balancing that fine line. But it's something that when I could like analyze my behavior as a leader, I would give myself a very low grade on expectation and holding people accountable, not for the fact that like I said, it's just, I need to learn it. I got to get better at it.
So you can, these are things that you can mm-hmm. learn. I would say that I didn't have that skill. That's a great thing. Like that's something that you can read about. You can also develop tools and that's what you'll do. I have no doubt that you'll do that. The interesting thing is that I've never been a very good micromanager. Although some people thrive in that environment, right? Not everybody, because I think that's kind of,
You mean being a leader micromanaging? Or
yeah, or any of them. So leader micromanaging other people, like you're really in their stuff. And I know some people do lead by that, and some teams work well with that. That does not work. That's not something that we have as part of what we do, unless somebody we really need to be in their stuff because it's either way over their head or they've gotten themselves in a pickle that they need to get out of, right?
Yeah,
that you're kind of like, okay. So what we're really doing is we're setting it up for success from the beginning where there's clear expectations. Starts with the job offer. It's into yearly, we have annual performance development discussions. There's clear expectations, but even within sales, Galen, I would tell you that our salespeople set their own expectations. Funny story, but years ago I had one of my salespeople say to me, I really need to make more money. I said, this is great news. They said, no, seriously, I need to make more money. And you get a commission, so you get how it works, and you get a percentage of what that is. So you get how that works. And I'm like, yeah, that part doesn't change. You just do better.
Yeah.
And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, it's a sales job. This is what we do. We are based on, at the bottom line is all of our why, but we do sell insurance. And people have direct control over that for themselves. How hard do you want to work? How good do you want to be at what you do? So, that all said, yes, we have baseline expectations of what we're guiding people to do. But for the most part, we're not in people's stuff. Now, that's numbers. So you can guide that. If somebody's not into numbers, they're like an associate or, there's still other metrics that you can use in terms of what they're handling and the book size and relationships and a lot of other ways to make that work.
Do you guys use metrics a lot to drive your business?
Absolutely.
So because again, like I said, I'm learning, so I'm picking your brain a little bit on here, but the metric aspect, that's something that I've heard time and time again. In anything you list, anybody successful, like we'll check the numbers and check the metrics. So one of my main things that I want to start doing is diving into. I track my stuff. Like I have
absolutely. You're driven.
So I have a thing next to me. A friend of mine gave me back in 2015. If you actually can see that stack up there, those are papers from 2015. I've tracked every week since 2015.
Of course you have.
But it allows me to know, like, kind of, I can give myself a kick in the pants and say, hey, listen, like, you didn't do something on my metric sheet, and that's holding you back. Is I want pretty much, not like being super anal about everything, but making sure that our main metrics are eventually listed out, so then I can at a glance look down and say, like, just simply how many pendings do we have in a week, and then build that back.
So that's it. So building that in. You remember, we're a 91-year-old company, and my dad's still involved there, and I've been president now for 13 years, and I've really, since 1992, I've had direct influence on the company, so almost 30 years. That's a long time to develop and put these things in place. But you think about it, and I would say don't get overwhelmed with trying to do too many things. Pick one thing you said it earlier, 80-20. Like, what is your one thing? And for us, sometimes it isn't always the sales that we close, but it's the asks that we have. So if somebody's new in real estate, you probably want to just have them have enough activity, right? And that's kind of just get out there, get in the community. How many people did you talk to? And that's a key metric from an early on standpoint. I'm just a fan of data. Data drives results.
And like you said, when you said you're decisive, it's like, if I have the data, I don't even have to think about it.
Well, and if you ever read Crucial Conversations, I'm talking about all these books that we read, but our whole team has read Crucial Conversations. Don't ask me who wrote that, but I can give you that. I can give you that. I can tell you our whole team has read that book, and we read it as part of the first week experience when people start. They read that because a lot of where Crucial Conversations is, and this is like, even if I have somebody who's, like I said, they're in a pickle, and they come to me, and it's like, what's the data say on this? What do our notes say? What's the information? What's the situation? And if you start from data, you're already starting from a foundation. It's not the emotional. It's not I realize this is hard, but what do we know? And if you stick to facts, which is a lot of what this says, is then you're usually in a pretty good, solid place, right?
Yeah.
To start from. So that's, again, a culture influencer for us. So everybody knows how to have those tough conversations from the very beginning, and how to give feedback, how to take feedback.
Yeah, and like I said, it'll stuff I'll get to, but as I've been thrust more into it, and looking at people that I think are great leaders locally in our community, it's like you kind of pick, and what's something that you focus on, or what metrics, or what drives you, or what, you know. And I find that, like, obviously for the term, like, success leaves clues, but you kind of look at, like, other people. If they can do it, then, like, what's working, and trying to polish myself by taking in ideas and then what works and what doesn't. Or like you said, you could just reaffirm something that I think deep down I know, but it's just not put in play. And you're like, no, I'll do that. Like,
exactly. And I think that's where, look, you have your own style. Everybody has their own. I would never be prescriptive about how people have to have a style, but data's data.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
You know exactly how many.
I know data within my
and you
company,
know what, and you know what you're going for, and your why is bigger than that. So I understand, but you're driven by that success. The hardest thing I would say for you probably is those of us that are intrinsically driven and personally responsible to ourselves expect the same in other people. So say that again. Like, we expect other people to be the same as what we are.
Yeah.
And when we don't see it, it's like, what do you mean you don't have a system?
Well,
you have to have a system.
And I actually, and taking that back, I heard this once from a business guy, and he said that nobody should love the company or do more for the company than you, if you own the company.
Right.
And I've always had that through my mind. I'm like, nobody should care more than me. Nobody should outwork me or be putting in more effort than I'm willing to put in, because you're setting that expectation of certain effort level. But I think it's also the same thing where I realize, especially in real estate, like, there's high achievers and there's very, like, just they're kind of just they have their license basically, and they're in everywhere in between, and it just blows my mind. I'm like, how do you not want to, do a certain task or do something or go above and beyond? But everybody has their own level of
they do, and some
like,
people need more guidance. I would tell you, the younger gen, they need more regular meetings, more touch points. We have a Monday morning quarterback meeting with some of our younger folks. It's a great analogy. People are really into football at my office. I'm all for that. Sports analogies are key. When you said earlier about effort, and I know we're getting
we're getting
there, but we're wrapping up. But that's an important point, and I want to make sure that if you ever want to have another conversation, we can even do it offline. But effort is not always translated exactly into time. Okay? So time does not equal effort. If people can figure out how to work smarter, you don't always have to work longer. Some people need to work longer because that's just the way they organize themselves. So I always think it's kind of like when you say nobody should be working hard, giving more effort. Like, I would tell you, it depends on how you define that. Because there are people that I would say, boots on the ground, in their office, like, put in a lot more time than I do in a particular space. I have a different job, So I'm out in the community, I'm on a different board, I'm with a client, I'm handling another problem, I'm jumping in on an employee thing, I'm working from home, It's not measured exactly that way. And I guess I would say to you, that's always kind of something to really pin down, because I don't measure those metrics as much as I measure out, like, the stuff that's important that you come back to. So you're still back to what is this person's goals? What are they trying to achieve, and how do you get there?
Yeah. And like an effort for me, when I really know, like, when I can, like, tap myself on the back and say good job, it's when I have focused effort, which for me it's like 1, 2, 3 hours of focused work on something I know I should be doing. And I don't even look at clearing through emails and going through client stuff as being like work now, because when I talk about 80-20, that 20% that I know is really the main stuff, the vision, the implementing, all that to me, that is, if I can work on that, then I consider that a very productive day. Where if I run around and have appointments, well, good, I don't deem that as being a day that I can check mark as like I got a lot of satisfaction out of. But
yeah, and I do hear you. It's interesting when you say focus, and I learned early on in my career that focus to me means that I've just shut out other things, and I can be alone in my thoughts, very much into something, and people are talking right outside my door, and that's a life skill for parents that have careers, or maybe parents that are just trying to survive, whatever we're doing. And I learned, and a lot of my young parents know how to do that. They know they only have so much time to give, and they need to make it absolutely the most productive. And so that comes back to culture too, is that I'm not prescriptive in saying, and you must be at this thing at this night on this thing and do this. People have lives, they have families. Figure out how to make it work smarter for you, you know?
And fit in that, like you said, that community
and where your focus is. So, I tell people I need 100% from you, maybe 110. get to bed at night, get some rest. If you're burning the candle at both ends, you are not going to be your best self the next day.
Yeah.
Think about the choices that you're making and what you're putting your energy into. How are you feeding yourself and your body and your mind and everything else? And again, that's like, I don't try not to be in their stuff too much, but honestly, we are an early business. We start at 8 in the morning or earlier. People are there 6:30, 7 o'clock, and you just got to be careful how you're doing your off time, right? I mean, you owe it to yourself. I can't control that for people, but don't ask me to take care of you if you're not bringing it. That's just kind of like, I would say that's very clear to people, and that's not just me. There is little tolerance for you just made a mess of yourself, and now you want
Yeah, it's like partying too hard at night and having to sleep the rest of the day. It's like,
no,
don't miss. Well, I'm saying don't miss work because you partied up till 3 in the morning. Like,
I'm with you. No,
yeah.
No.
So, well, Deena, we're gonna wrap up there because of I want to respect your time, but I'll be honest. This was I have a lot of, like I said, I know your son more than I know you personally, but having just seen you guys out and about in the community and seeing obviously the company for as long as I can remember, and now knowing more people at the company just through networking or chamber events and things, it's you got a great organization. The people that work there again
Terrific.
are, at least the ones that I know, are excellent people. So
They all are.
I'm assuming that branches out to the other 38 that or the other handful, 30 something that I don't know, but they like I said, the stuff that you guys are doing to me is it's admirable. I like seeing it, and it gives me. I really look at people that are doing well and companies that are doing well, because for me, I'm always looking at that as like, okay, that's motivation, because I'm like, if someone can do it, then why can't you do it? And then in your own way, like you said, it's not
Absolutely.
a blueprint that you have to follow, but there's successes and there's things that you guys will leave that I can pick up on and be like, they're really good at this. There must be something to that. Or they're really good at this. And like even down to, like you said, the company culture thing is something I love. And I remember I was at lunch with Tiffany one day, and she was talking about axe throwing, and I'm like, this is great. Like,
that was fun.
But it's just like, it's off the wall, but it's different, but it's fun. And then, but then I look at that, I'm like, okay, there's a company event, and like, so there's a lot of stuff I have focused on from your company from afar, and like kind of taking it back to the whiteboard and said, how can I use this theme to maybe implement at Kavanaugh, and then if it works, it's great, or how can I build up on stuff? And so I think, and again, we didn't get to, I mean, there's,
oh my gosh,
you're involved in a ton of stuff. I know you give back. I know you're, well, from seeing it, like I said, there's a lot of cool stuff here, but I appreciate
I'm okay. I'm okay with that. We're not going to talk about it.
That's good. So I'll let you get going, but I appreciate you coming on, and Zoom was fantastic today.
Wasn't she great?
Yeah.
Galen, I want to thank you for having me. I didn't have an agenda coming in. I figured we just figure it out. And I would tell you that, like, is there any great corporate secrets here? Probably not, because everybody has to make it their own. Mm-hmm. It's not like you can take this interview with me out and, like you say, do a blueprint on it. I do think, though, that there's a lot of important points that we talked about today. And for people listening, my hope is that people are intentional about culture. They are intentional about their values and what they're saying, and however they do their meditation, whether it's at 62 degrees in the water or totally snuggled up with, I don't know, a Zen-like stance, whatever works for you. It's finding what is right and find the culture that's right for you. And it's been fun talking with you. Yeah. And Zoom thought it was so great, she went to sleep.
Yeah, that was. She had her bone. She had her sleep. She's ready to go. She's ready to rock and roll for the night. So, Deena, again, thank you so much. That is episode 167 of the Galen Trombley Show. We're out. Thanks for listening to the Galen Trombley Show. If you want to reach me, you can go on Facebook at Galen Trombley, on Instagram at Galen Trombley, and on YouTube at Galen Trombley. The spelling, GaelanTrombley.